In part 1, I covered how you'd start writing your story if all you had was a visual idea about your scene's setting, which you could then extend to the next scene and the next scene and eventually build an entire world out of it. But every world needs inhabitants, characters, three-dimensional, complex, realistic, and relatable. So we're going to start by developing one character, also through a visualization exercise to determine, most importantly, the character's emotional state of being. This is going to allow us to forge a deeper, more innate understanding of who our character is, and by extension, what they're capable of achieving. This visualization process will erase who you are as the writer so that you can become your character. So take a deep breath and close your eyes if you feel inclined to do so. And let your mind wander. You're in a dark, endless room. There are no windows. And try as you might, you can't get your eyes to adjust to the darkness. You have no perception of what you look like, of what anything looks like. But you know you're in a foreign and undiscovered world. You take 50 steps in front of you. There's no wall. You take 100 steps to the left. There's still no wall. You start running in every direction possible. And you still don't reach any limit. And then you stop and you smile to yourself. You realize you're shedding who you think you are, and you're transforming into your character. You're about to be born into a world that needs you. And the moment the veil lifts, you're going to find yourself in an important place in your new world. And you're going to have to pick up and start living from that exact point. So you decide to wait. You lie on your back, flat on the ground. And though you can't see anything with your eyes wide open, you decide to close them because this calms you down. Then you think deeply about who you are, and you let the feelings and emotions flow through you. You acknowledge them, and then you let them go. And you're able to answer these questions truthfully and true to your character. Are you about to begin your journey, or has your journey just ended? Are you ready to go on an adventure, or have you just returned from one? Are you rife with anticipation, waiting for something to happen? Is your heart rate elevated, with beads of sweat on your brow? Do you feel like running, or are you backed into a corner with absolutely nowhere to turn? Or are you hunkering down, waiting to take a stand? Has something just happened that you need to react to right now? To say or do something? Are you taking a moment to think about what you're going to do? Or are you frozen, unable to do anything, fight or flight? Or do you feel confident, like you could physically take on the entire world and anything that opposes you? Do you feel light and unburdened, or is something heavy weighing you down? Perhaps a decision you have to make that could change someone's life, but at the cost of your own. Are you ready to sacrifice yourself for everything you believe in? Or do you feel the lies and manipulation forming the tip of your tongue to try and save yourself? Do you feel battered and bruised, or seriously injured, barely managing to keep yourself alive? Or do you feel full, complete, happy, warm, and loved? Are you tired, ready to rest, or settle into your new life that you finally get to enjoy? Or are you ready to give up and accept defeat? Answering these questions with simple yeses and nos, and then letting our imaginations wander to dig deeper into the emotional state that our character finds themselves in, leaves us with just one thing to do, and that's to write down all character attributes flooding our senses as we embody our character. Beliefs, values, personality, integrity. Don't stop until you have a complete picture of who your character is in this moment in time. And from this visualization, we could either have discovered that our character is at their peak or at their low. If we find our character at their peak, they would be the best versions of themselves. Their potential is fully realized and they're exactly who they were meant to be. Traditionally, this would mean that we're at the end of their journey or at the end of the story, and they've come a long way to become this person. Through sacrifice, strength, and a reevaluation of everything they knew to be true, all that really good character building stuff. Less traditionally, a character at their peak would be at the start of their story, and things just end up going from bad to worse, and they devolve as a character. On the other hand, we could have discovered that our characters at a low, the absolute worst versions of themselves. This would be a character who is deflated, uninspired, and directionless. Traditionally, we'd find a character at a low at the beginning of a story, right before their call to action, that requires them doing and making decisions that transform them into who they need to be at the end of the story, and to work towards their character peak. Less traditionally, you'd be at the end of the book and everything's just kind of gone downhill for this character. It could also mean that we're in the first of a series of books about this character. Asking yourself these leading questions after just having embodied your character will allow you to uncover more about not just who they are, but who they were and who they're becoming. And that's when you can start getting into their actions, how they move, their gestures and body language, their tics, the speed at which they do things, and then eventually how they look. If they're your main character, you've probably already thought about whether they're attractive or physically appealing in some way or the other. And you can then start layering on the physical features, specifically the things that make them stand out. Or if we were standing in front of them, the physical attributes that would immediately draw our attention. This is a relatively easier part of the character development process, the actions and the physical features. But whatever it is, write it all down, because this will form the basis of your character analysis. And believe it or not, this hasn't been an example of how to do a character analysis. You can consider this to be more character exploration, determining everything your character can be and more, and figuring out what they need to do to become who they need to be. A character analysis is easier done when your character is well established within a plot, and then you ask yourself questions such as, is what they're doing plausible? Is it realistic? Is it viable? Most importantly, is it rational? These questions are completely different because you want them to now fit a realistic mold, whether they're in an epic fantasy or they're a horror villain. But when you're conceptualizing a character to start building a story, anything and everything is possible, and we don't have to worry at that point about stretching the limits of believability and plausibility. Look out for part 3 of this 3-part series when you can start getting something on the page when all you have is dialogue.